Welcome to Cheaper Than Therapy, a podcast that journeys into conversations with the intention of demystifying, destigmatizing, and desensitizing what really gets talked about behind the closed doors of the therapy room.
I'm Vanessa Bennett.
And I'm Dené Selkin.
And we're seekers, soul sisters, and holders of sacred space. So join us as we dive into the ways that therapy can be connecting not only to yourself, but also to those around you.
Welcome back to Cheaper Than Therapy. We're going to do another one of our coaching laser sessions. And this was, I think, a really good episode in the context of what's happening for so many people. This moment that we're in where they're sort of stuck quarantined, a lot of times with someone that it's really challenging to be quarantined with, right? Like this is happening for a lot of relationships.
Right. I mean, geez, we were even hearing about how, at least I've read articles about how, like, in China, the divorce rate has gone up like 3 times what it's ever been because, you know, people are stuck. They can't hide, right? They can't hide behind going to work or getting out of the house or whatever. And so people are really being forced to like face the relationship. You know, I think that June represents what a lot of people, to your point, are going through in terms of being stuck under the same roof with somebody who they've already realized it's time to move on from.
Yeah. And I feel like you said this, or we were having this conversation about how a lot of what is happening in this time is it's sort of forcing us to look at some things we might have swept under the rug a little bit longer. It's sort of like this blue light on all of these things that maybe we've been able to ignore up until this point, but now we sort of have to do something. It's like forced action around these issues.
Right. And I think, you know, at least in this case with June, what I think was so interesting is that it parlayed itself from the conversation about what's happening with COVID, like you're being forced to look at it because you're all stuck during this whole, you know, quarantine situation, into her being the mama of a small child. And then also being like, what are you doing for you? Right. So we know that you're stuck, but what are you doing for you? And what are you teaching your son? I think that also represents so much of what we talk about with clients, this martyr thing, right? Like the mother is kind of seen as the martyr. And what does that do when a child sees you in that light versus sees you doing what's right for you and what's best for you?
Yeah. And I think it's a struggle that both of us as moms were able to really relate to as we were talking to her. There is sort of this push and pull between like continuing to be the fullest version of myself and also feeling like, you know, all of a sudden there's this little being or this human that I want to give everything to, but what am I teaching them when I sacrifice myself fully in order to do that?
Right. And I think that pertains to dads too, right? I mean, I would say mom, but I feel like a lot of dads can relate to the same idea. So I think this kind of pertains to both.
Oh, absolutely.
Enjoy, guys.
We are so excited to have June with us today. How are you doing, June?
I'm doing all right, hanging in.
Dené and I actually put a call out on our Instagrams to, you know, let our communities know that we are doing not only this podcast now, but part of this podcast is that we want to offer some support where we can and trying our best to help, especially trying to give back, I guess, during this kind of crazy time. And June was somebody who reached out about something that she's been working through. And June, I'm going to let you kind of give it in your own words, but just to give a top line, it sounds like you are kind of working through some grief around some betrayal, and it sounds like kind of an abusive marriage, right? That you're trying to leave after some infidelity.
Yes. Yep. That would be the nutshell. Yeah, just a very extreme version of betrayal. A very long-term, repeated, and sort of realizations within that I think my marriage relationship has been emotionally destructive, I think is a good phrase for a long time, even prior to this big affair. And the revelation of the big affair was a couple of years ago. So I have been in this swirl. It was definitely crisis survival mode for a long time, and trying to work through it with the hope of restoring my marriage and having my partner kind of come back to earth, which he just hasn't. And so I won't go into a lot of details there, but ultimately there has been so much psychological and emotional abuse heaped on me, even just in the way of deceit and lies, gaslighting to a maximum level. And I've mothered my infant and now toddler through it all. And really part of my debate, I think part of the agony is how, like letting go of the dream of having an intact family, which is really a normal thing. And I had no inkling that I would have to have basically this forced on me by his choices over and over and over and over again, and splitting up my family and what that means for me, which I've worked through a ton of the emotional pieces there to disconnect, honestly, from him emotionally, but what that means for my child, I'm balancing all of that and really trying to figure out the pathway that's going to be like the least bumpy for me and my son, while at the same time, like I've hardly had a moment to actually really let this grief be sort of processed and to be witnessed. I've done it in some ways, but
well,
I
and of
think there's
course, who has time when they have an infant and then a toddler, right? That's always I mean, now as a new mother myself, I'm really connecting to that specific piece. And this idea that you said, you use this word forced upon, feeling like it was forced upon you. And I think that's a really powerful statement. And I wonder, is this idea of forced upon something that you feel like is a new revelation? Is this forced upon feeling something that you've been holding for a long time?
Long time. I think it was very an immediate recognition of the powerlessness that I had the very moment I learned about his affair. And then it just screamed into, and I'm trying to come up with the right words. It just was like, it was like being held underwater for so long. And so I've been able to come up for air more and more, but another layer of pathology, I guess you might call it, or just horror, is that he manipulated his way back into our shared residence. Now it's been a year almost, and he won't leave. And he maintained his affair for a good portion of that time. So it's then I was I've been working through a lot of this sort of with the trauma and the abuse sort of just continuing to be a presence continuously. So I have done, I think, amazing work to kind of peel back different layers of myself, to kind of rise in certain ways. And it's kind of, I think I've played a lot with things like around like metaphysical, quantum, spiritual, energetic, like how all of that comes into play, while your physical reality is sort of a different thing, which is super trippy to your brain for obvious reasons. So I think it makes me feel stuck to take action in like my
in the physical
life.
form.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel so struck as I'm listening to you, June, with just what it must be to juggle what it feels like as a mama, to try to be really present for how I want to hold what is so difficult for my child in their experience of this. This person has come back into the space with me. And so this is where I live. This is where I go to exhale, and I don't have that anymore. And yet I don't want to be in a position where I'm having my child witness constant conflict with this person. And I can't even imagine, that's such a difficult thing to hold. And I guess I wonder where you're going right now, or what you're doing to get that exhale, to have some sort of space in the world that you can have for you.
No, thank you. That is just, I appreciate that you're able to pull that out. And I think that's great. That's a great question, especially now that there's a whole different thing happening on a societal level. I feel there's an oddness of like society has kind of joined in with I've already lived a semi-isolated and isolated life a lot in my head and in my heart. And so it's odd in that way. It's a little triggering in that way. So I'm reevaluating in our current moment. And I think it's also making me sort of like kind of lean in and face it, which I know is absolutely the only way through to, I can't literally run away. My trauma response is freeze. Just, I've definitely discovered that. I want to flee, but I can't because of my circumstances, of course. So freeze is what I then do. I've retreated back into that a little bit. So I think, that question is so useful. I think I have a pretty amazing internal world, and I have a lot of comfort and ability to sit with uncertainty and uncomfortable feelings and still really show up for my kid, because I've been doing it solidly since I was pregnant. Honestly, this all started when I was pregnant, and I was treated horribly by my partner during that time also. So I'm good at it for unfortunate reasons. And I have a background in yoga and breathing. I think I absolutely need to use that more. Just simple, consistent breathing exercises would probably do a lot of good. Some of that gets scrambled up because I have a toddler and I'm juggling a job and toddler. And so, I think even doing this, I've never done anything like this before. And this is a little bit of me being able to exhale, because I am feeling really like bottled up.
I can hear the tightness in your voice.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And that's exactly what it is. It's like I'd already worked through a lot of that in my day to day, but it was not anywhere near processed or okay point. So now,
well, let me interrupt you really quick. What would processed, I guess, look like? I mean, if you could kind of wave a wand right now and say like, oh, I've processed this and this has changed, what would that look like for you? I mean, it's a loaded question, obviously, because
oh no, it's
really
another
like, right?
True, exactly. And I think it's a good question. I think it's a helpful question. I think it would be to have to have had enough courage, enough boldness to truly have ended my marriage, or be in the process of doing that, to create some physical distance, which I'm ready for. I'm just not ready to face what that means for my child and my mothering relationship with my child.
Tell me more about that.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, there's so much.
Well, I guess if you could say, how do you feel like, okay, so if you say that, what that looks like for you, right? When I asked you if you could wave a wand, and it looks like space and being able to start separating, right? And the worry for you is, what does that look like? Or how does that, I guess, transpire in the relationship, mothering relationship with your son, or the relationship obviously he has with his father? Tell me more about that concern or that fear. Like, how does one play into the other, I guess, if that makes sense?
Yeah. As far as what it means for me and what it means for my child,
Right.
is that, or like the mothering relationship?
Right.
Yeah, I think I have concerns about just the stability, mental stability primarily, of my partner, my child's father. And so, there are concerns, and it's not, I mean, he absolutely spends time with our son and can do a reasonable job, and it's not all bad, but there are concerns as far as just stability and consistency in his responses. And my child is really young still, and I do recognize that over time he's going to individuate and he's going to have his own relationship with his father, and I accept all of that. But especially now while he's little and I can't, like, he can't verbalize to me what is maybe happening when I'm not there. So he has alone time with his dad right now, but more of that is unnerving to me. And I also am my son's primary caregiver. I am his safety point. I have shielded him from chaos, which is, I would do it again a trillion times over, even though it's been detrimental to me. But so there's that aspect of just, I worry, there's fear there. And so kind of like, again, going back to the forced upon, contemplate being removed from your own child. Let's say if we're talking custody, and I try not to project too much into the future, and just, it is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be. But there's a protective factor that comes in for that soul, my little child's, soul, his life path, that I just want him to be set up and I know set up well, and I know that these early years are really important for that, and I take that really seriously. And so, yeah, there's just like for him to be removed from me and me to be removed from him, I think is a true detriment if my partner would really push for like 50-50 custody.
Mm-hmm.
And basically to be apart from your child for 50% of his life is an
course.
obscene thing to accept. So
No, you can't see us, but both Vanessa and I think as mothers just feel so deeply the pain
yeah,
of what you're talking about. It's visceral.
yeah,
And
yeah, thank you.
yeah. And what I would like to offer that I think I heard you speak to a little bit, June, is the truth of not only your child's resilience, but yours as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what I find a lot of times, and what I'm, I guess, learning from clients who are a little bit further down the path in their process of divorce, have sort of taught me that if I sort of stay true to what I know in terms of my relationship with my child, like what my child needs for me, that child grows older and they sort of, to what, the point that you made, they have their own way of holding the other parent, right? And if I just sort of, to the best of my ability, don't, bash that other parent, let them have their own relationship with that parent, they come to that understanding for themselves. And I think what's so great about the tools that I hear in you, it's very clear that you already have, is that you will be able to speak to your son about what his father is lacking in terms of his ability to show up for him with compassion, right? With these are the things that your father struggles with, but not about you. Like you will be the force that is able to speak to that for him. Does that resonate?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is something that gives me some amount of comfort. I think I've grown to accept that as the probable reality that I'm going to have these conversations with him that are age appropriate, that are, I never intend to bash his father to him. I know that that's no place I want to go. It's not useful. And I do believe in the ability of kids to gain their own understanding, and I think he is also, kind of extra special in his observations and ability. Even at the age of 2, I can, I just think that he's an intuitive little being. And I think what's hardest is sort of these in-between years is how I maybe think of it. So, that ability to really be able to see where there is concern or lack, from my son's perspective, and to verbalize it or process it. I feel like there's still some years in here where he's going to be too young to do that. So then it's like, as the mama, I'm trying to buffer, and I'm trying to, which is what you're supposed to do as a mama and a parent. You're supposed to be your child's co-regulating nervous system and their frontal lobe, and like that's a part of what I think we are tasked with doing as parents. And so
June,
that's hard.
I want to interrupt because I feel like maybe I might be playing bad cop here, so forgive me if I am, but it just tends to be my way to be a little bit more blunt. You sound like you have all of the understanding of what it is that you need to show up and provide for your child. You're so, I mean, as a therapist, you're so spot on when you talk about how you help co-regulate them and all of these things. And and you also are so spot on when you talk about, what your trauma response is, right? It's to freeze. And while we can say, yeah, we don't want to project too far in the future, we can see where this path might lead. And of course there's fear around that. Why wouldn't there be? What I also want to ask is, if you know that your child is intuitive, because they all are, right? It's crazy. I'm literally thinking right now about how yesterday my partner and I had probably our first like big argument since my newborn was born. And I'll share this with you because it probably will resonate with both of you guys. She was in the bedroom sleeping, and she woke up in the middle of our argument, and we were probably pretty loud. She's never before woken up not crying. She woke up and she was in her bassinet, and she was just kind of talking to herself and cooing as we were outside kind of arguing. And when I got in and took her out and she was sitting on my lap and him and I were still kind of going at it, she was totally silent. She was looking at me, and then she was looking at him, and then she was looking at, and then she was looking at him, and she was not making a noise. And I had this moment of like, holy shit, like you know what's happening, right? Like you can't understand the words, but you know what's going on right now. And so I offer that also because I know that that feeling, or like watch your son, he knows what's happening in his own way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So where
Yeah.
I say I'm going to play bad cop here is I also want to make sure that we're super aware that you being in this freeze response is also something that's information for him, right? Like we're teaching him
Mm-hmm.
things right now too. So
Mm-hmm.
you putting him first is great, but he's also learning that you go into freeze and that you're allowing dad to do what dad's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally. I hear that so loud and clear. And I think it's something that kind of bounces around my brain a lot. And I have these like kind of, gain momentum
Mm-hmm.
in strength and clarity. And I mean, this has been an ebb and a flow for a
Of
while
course.
for a lot of reasons I won't go into. Like, I had good
Mm.
reason to
Oh,
be
this
in
isn't easy.
fear mode. No,
Yeah.
right. It's a process. And then I kind of beat myself up a little bit, like, why can't you just, just do this, just move
Mhm.
forward? And I do have a good therapist who's very,
Good.
he's a good advocate, kind of really would echo exactly what you just said, but also is understanding of like the actual process of
Mm-hmm.
even just divorce unto itself is
Yes.
traumatic. It's hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
scary, all those things. So yeah, no, I definitely, I think there's a motivator there in that I can teach him, my son, things by how I move through this and to be courageous and in the face of this fear of this, doing it scared, that kind of idea.
Right.
I
I love that.
know it's something I want him to learn. And it's sort of, I think it's some of the like downloading and radical acceptance of a reality that is
Mm-hmm.
very unacceptable. So that's been the process. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm so much further down that spectrum. And it is good to be reminded of, like a sort of a shift in perspective to keep that in my line of sight. Like
Mm-hmm.
he has been my priority, my son,
Mm.
and to make sure that I can think about that in some different ways, I know is important. And it gets easier now that he's
Of
a little
course.
bit older. When he was an infant, that was just, absolutely like the risk of what might happen if I tried to split and
Sure.
my partner was horrible and like
Mm-hmm.
fought for custody with an infant was I just didn't take that risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Even with some physical separation during those months, but from my partner, that is. So
I just wanted to jump in if I could, because I know the situation that we're all in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, listening to where you are with your husband, but you're separated, but not physically separated,
right.
which I relate to right now
Right.
a lot, because I also am separated and in a position where I am co-parenting my child with my husband. And so there's so much of what we're talking about that I really resonate with. And the word that keeps coming up for me is differentiation, which I think, and I'm in a situation where I'm really good friends with my husband, and still there is a lot of difficulty in sharing space with someone that that you are shifting away from being in a relationship with, right? So I am ready for this like physical distance from you, and yet we are in a position right now where I can't actually have that. So how do I deal with this? And for me, what I think is really helpful is the practice of differentiation, meaning I sort of become the witness of you in that space over there. And it's almost boundaried, right? Like you are there and I am here and we are separate from one another. So I am watching your behaviors without sort of taking them on as about me, as something I internalize. Like it becomes that practice of like, I almost like to imagine like a physical bubble keeping me from taking on that energy, but I'm watching it and I'm witnessing it. I don't know if that is helpful at all, but I think it becomes, this is your experience in your life, and almost like a comforting feeling of, and this is not my life anymore. And I know that that's not where you are yet, but almost like the holding of the space for when that is the truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Or
I
does
love
that
that.
does that help at all? I know it's been helping me.
Yeah, no, I think that is a practice that could be definitely useful, and I think I do some amount of something along those lines, but by my disengagement with him, which I've become very good at. but it's not a complete disengagement, because I still have emotional responses that I'm
Of
struggling with,
course.
which is to be expected, and it's all it is what it is. But to kind of have even a visual of a bubble, and like I like the way you phrased it about holding space for kind of what will be. I think is that
Yes.
sort of what you said.
Yes, I think like holding that in your heart right now, like the life that I will
Mm-hmm.
have for myself and my son. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe can I even hold with a little bit of gratitude that
Mm-hmm.
this part that I'm witnessing right now is going to be behind me, that like I want more for myself somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And that's a
I love that.
powerful lesson too that your son will learn through you non-verbally.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
a softer approach to than what I said earlier, which is like we teach our children, right? Like obviously we all know it's through action, not word, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
your
Yep.
son is definitely taking in that he is your priority, and your son is taking in that you are his advocate and you are the mama bear and you are protecting him, and all of those things are coming through for him loud and clear. It's almost as
Yep.
if now it sounds like you're ready. I mean, obviously physically, do we have that capability in the midst of this crazy situation? No, but
Mm-hmm.
mentally,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, it sounds like you're at this next like precipice where now the lesson for your son is going to become, I also take care of me, and I'm important, and
Yeah.
I love myself enough to do X, Y, and Z, and to take that next step.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love what you said about doing it. How did you word it? Doing it in fear?
Doing it scared.
Doing
Yeah.
it scared. I love that.
Mm,
Yeah.
I
I
love
think
that.
that
That's
comes from
so
Brene
powerful.
Brown, I
Yeah.
think,
Oh,
which makes
yes.
sense, right?
Yeah.
our girl Brene.
Yeah. Oh, everybody's girl. I love
I
her.
know.
Yes. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'm gonna
No.
offer you the fact that I'm so feeling and holding this struggle for you and with you, and I can only, like I said, as a very new mother, I hear you. Like I can only imagine the feeling of a bit of a back up against the wall, right? And it sounds like, to your point, there was a lot of like emotional abuse and things that, look,
Mm-hmm.
gaslighting it's a lot to sift through, and it sounds like you've actually taken a lot of time to be able to put words to things, and
Mm-hmm.
make sense of things, right? Which is huge. And that's a big step kind of on that journey. So kudos to you for kind of getting to where you're at already. And I think that just speaks more to what I was saying about it feels to me on my end like you're standing on this precipice and you're almost now like
Mm-hmm.
ready to take this next step on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if this time becomes a little bit of an opportunity to workshop how I want to hold myself in this space of how I will not only co-parent with this person at some point, but how I
Mm-hmm.
will hold myself and the opportunity to move forward in a life
Mm-hmm.
that now has expanded in terms of opportunity. I think that
Mm-hmm.
is the thing that as we sort of wade through all the grief and all of the dying of the dream, there we
Mm-hmm.
start to feel this space for, and now what is there
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for me to have for myself that maybe I hadn't been open to
Mm.
until now? And that's where
Yeah.
the excitement comes in. And that's like,
Mm-hmm.
even as I hear Vanessa speaking to it, I start to get excited for you, June,
Mm-hmm.
because this becomes sort of the catalyst for this next phase of your life. And it feels like that's where you are.
I feel in this very short amount of time that you've both been able to pull out some important kind of witness and see some things that are there, which it is useful. And even just the personal experiences that you have, I think it's helpful to kind of give voice to my story more. And I feel like you both really were present to that, and optimistic, at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, validating what's so hard. But then also, I definitely have been able to touch in more with the possibilities that are
Mm-hmm.
here, this, the opportunities, and the gratitude I might have for sort of the creative possibilities that exist, that and the life path that I might not have
Yeah.
actively chosen, but could
Mhm.
reveal itself to be better than I can imagine.
Well, right. And let's
So,
also be real here and say, like, it is a bit about let's hold space for all of the things, right? All of the
mhm.
emotions, all of the realities, because there is hope and there is excitement, and this is fucking hard. And
Yeah,
there
this is fucking hard. Yes.
and there are
Yes.
days that you're going to want to crawl into a hole and cry all day. And there are days, right? So all of
Yeah.
these things are true.
And
And
all of
Mhm.
it's welcome, all of it,
right, right.
right?
And that's also what another amazing lesson to teach your son, that all
Yeah.
of these things can
Yes.
be true at the same time. Mommy can have
Yeah.
an hour where she's sobbing I'm okay, baby. I'm okay, but I'm sad right now. And then mommy can also have a day where she's in a really good place and she's able to breathe through it and she's able to, right? You're human.
Yeah.
You're showing him that it is okay to have all of these different things going on at the same time and stay present and stay kind of grounded amidst all of it.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Good summation.
Yeah. Well, June, I feel like I want to affirm, how many tools I hear already as you speak. I feel so happy for this little boy in the moment that he has. And it is clear to me the two of you are going to be just fine. I have no doubt. So, thank you for being willing to, share with us. And I I really am excited for the two of you because he's got an incredible mama.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I really appreciate you calling in, June. I think this is going to be really helpful for many people listening and just being able to put themselves in similar situations where, again, it's like, it's hard, it's horrible. And okay, I'm on this precipice. And what does that look like? What's next? And being able to allow them to also see that it's okay to be scared and it's okay to be excited and right. And I think that that's going to be really powerful for a lot of listeners.
Good. Yes. Thank you.
Listen, you have our email. So do us a favor and let us know how you're doing, amidst all this craziness. Shoot us a note and just kind of keep us posted because we really want to know.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. I would love to do that. And I just appreciate this opportunity to air some of this in a different way. So
Awesome.
To give voice to it. And I appreciate your insights and your tips and your listening.
Good.
You take care, Mama.
All right. Yeah.
Right,
you
June.
both as well.
All right. Bye, June.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Cheaper Than Therapy.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
And if you want to connect with us, you can find us on Instagram at Vanessa S. Bennett
And at Dené Logan Selkin.